From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on AgDay.
This country will hold itself together by coming together is the biggest thing.
One farmer's inspiring message during these trying times as the fight against the coronavirus deepens.
I view it as in a sense, a wartime president. I mean, that's what we're fighting. I mean, it's a very tough situation.
And spring planting begins.
We're just now getting underway.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. In another effort to try and slow the spread of the coronavirus, the border between the U.S. and Canada is being shut down. It's being closed to all non-essential travel. President Trump making the announcement on Twitter, writing, quote, "We will be, by mutual consent, temporarily closing our northern border with Canada to non-essential traffic. Trade will not be affected," end quote. Canada relies on the U.S. for about 75% of its exports, and about 18% of American exports go to Canada. The president addressing the issue while speaking at a White House Coronavirus Task Force news conference.
I spoke with the Prime Minister, Trudeau. Very good relationship, obviously, between us and our two countries, and no tipping point. It's just that we want to isolate from the standpoint we don't want people coming into contact, because that's the way we're going to win this war. That is so important.
As you know, this has been a volatile couple of weeks for the markets, with the Dow sinking again on Wednesday and the White House acknowledging the rising likelihood that the virus outbreak will cause a recession. U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin suggesting that U.S. unemployment levels could reach Great Depression levels of 20%, but the president says he does not agree with that number. The administration is also continuing to try to cut out the panic buying at grocery stores that's been going on. The Food and Drug Administration insisting there are no nationwide food shortages. FDA Commissioner Dr. Stephen Hahn says you should only buy enough food to last a week. The agency saying low supplies on certain items will be restocked soon. To help, the FDA is relaxing some verification and audit requirements for suppliers that are using other methods to make sure their products are safe. And as we first told you yesterday, regulators are lifting some restrictions on the trucking industry to keep merchandise moving around the country. The agency says travel restrictions have made it difficult to conduct its usual on-site audits. Now it plans to resume them when it becomes practical to do so. The American Farm Bureau warning of one big issue that could arise, the need for immigrant workers under the H-2A program. In a statement, the organization expressing concern about a temporary halt now in place for processing those H-2A visas in Mexico. It's due to the fact that U.S. embassies and consulates are being temporarily closed. That's according to Farm Bureau President Zippy Duvall, and it will make it much harder for American farmers to keep the country supplied with food if they don't have enough labor. Now, Duvall adding, quote, "American farmers will not have access to the skilled immigrant labor needed at this critical time of planting season and harvesting our spring crops," end quote. Duvall saying they are urging the administration to find a safe and practical way to admit farm laborers as emergency workers for visas. Immigrant laborers with previous work experience in the U.S. and who do not require in-person interviews will be allowed to return in the H-2A program. And we know many producers rely on farmers markets. In California, for example, some local governments and property owners have suspended operations. But many market managers say they should be considered an essential public service similar to the grocery store. We're being told that while some farmers markets have been temporarily closed, others remain open and have instituted additional measures to prevent close contact among customers and vendors in the state. While the story right now is the virus, a crop is still getting put in the ground. And now we're getting our first look at just how big this year's crop could be. Allendale Incorporated releasing its annual 2020 acreage survey results. And it comes ahead of USDA's releasing its own prospective plantings report, which officials have told us is still scheduled to come out on time this month. Allendale calling for corn planting intentions of just over 94.6 million acres. That would be almost 5 million over last year and would be the third largest of all time. Its production estimate would imply an increase over last year of 1.67 billion bushels at over 15 billion, which would be a record. As for soybeans, their analysts are calling for 83.74 million acres. Again, a much bigger crop, 7.6 million over last year. That would be the third largest acreage total. Allendale putting production at 4.1 billion bushels, the fourth largest in history. And wheat acreage is estimated at 44.46 million acres. That's actually down 693,000 acres from last year. It's also the lowest in history for wheat since USDA started records back in 1919. Now, Allendale's production estimate of 1.87 billion bushels is 46 million under last year.
This is simply a survey of nationwide producers in the first 2 weeks of March. This is not a survey of producers during planting here, so to speak. And obviously, one big concern for us is not just the outside issues, the falling prices, which could be another issue to speak of once May rolls around. However, keep in mind the moisture situation, especially in the Western Corn Belt, is actually worse than last year at this time. So that's one big issue we're all watching for, which could provide some surprises.
Nelson says total acreage is still below 2018 plantings, down roughly about 3 million acres. He says some of that may be lingering effects of last year's flooding, and it could also be driven by poor profit margins. And for many, the planters are already rolling. As LSU Ag Center reporter Craig Gautreaux reports, for some areas of Louisiana, now's the optimal time to plant corn.
It is a rite of spring across Louisiana. No, not blooming azaleas, but corn farmers sowing their seeds across their fields. A wet January and February had many farmers wondering when they could get into their fields, but they are now taking advantage of drier conditions.
Most of the farmers that I've talked to, they've had to jump around a little bit to find some dry ground, so we're just now getting underway.
Fromme estimates about 10% of the state's corn acreage has been planted. He would like to see the central part of Louisiana complete planting very soon.
Normally we'd like to be planted by March the 23rd if we could. About somewhere around after the third week of March, we begin to slowly lose yields.
Late planted corn can have lower yields because of increased insect and disease pressure and higher temperatures later in the growing season. Irrigation can help yields with the higher temperatures.
With over 70% of the corn acres being irrigated, that's also an advantage too. If you get planted late, it gets a little warmer, then you're able to irrigate and not impact yields as much.
Last year's corn yields were disappointing compared with the last several crops. Too much rain early reduced yields.
Last year, the state averaged around 165, 167 bushels per acre, and we'd kind of been spoiled for several years, making anywhere from 175 to 185.
Fromme says North Louisiana has till mid-April to get their corn planted in the optimal window. With the LSU Ag Center, this is Craig Gautreaux reporting.
Something else we're tracking right now, spring starts today, but you wouldn't know it in portions of the country. Meteorologist Cindy Clausen has details on a winter storm.
Yeah, Clinton, spring actually starts today, officially this evening, but we do have some snow on the horizon for a lot of folks, especially in the Plain States and upper Midwest. Let's take a look. This is the GFS model, and you can see that some of those northern areas have already seen a little snow, as well as some of those higher elevations out in the west. The next 24 hours are going to be fairly snowy as we get through our Dakotas and into Nebraska and up through Minnesota and even into the southern part of Canada. You can see a swath of snow that's going to be stretching across the country. And the GFS model shows a lot of those areas in that 4 to 8 range and maybe even higher than that. And I'll show you another model in just a few minutes so you can kind of compare the placement and the amounts. But obviously stay tuned to your local station for the most up-to-date information. And with many people's travel on hold, they're coming up with unique ways to entertain themselves. John Kaufman of Alberta, Canada, sharing this picture. John saying with Maui plans on hold, they took advantage of Bring Your Kids to Work Day and found their own microclimate by the dryer. He said it was not too shabby with 190 degrees coming off the neighbor's wheat. Stay tuned. I'll have more on your first day of spring forecast coming up. Clinton.
The U.S. Trade Representative officially announcing it is negotiating a trade agreement with Kenya. The U.S. Trade Representative officially notifying Congress about it. The office saying it would be the first possible trade agreement with a sub-Saharan African nation. Currently, Kenya is the U.S. 98th largest trading partner. Last year, the two nations exchanged $1 billion worth of goods. Wheat interests have said that Kenya could be a near $500 million market for U.S. wheat. While we're focused on planning, South America is working to wrap up another production season. We'll talk about that next in analysis. And later, one producer's message to the farming community that's going viral as we fight this virus together, coming up in the country. Oil prices have been suffering as a result of the coronavirus crisis, but ethanol also hit a record low in recent days, and the Renewable Fuels Association says many plants are on the verge of shutting down. In a statement, the group is imploring the Trump administration to take action that equitably supports all liquid fuel industries, including ethanol producers. The chairman of the board of the Siouxland Energy Ethanol plant in Sioux Center, Iowa, says the industry is in, quote, dire straits. All traders and CME Group staff ordered not to come into the building in Chicago now. Virginia McGathy bringing us the latest on what's taking place in the commodity markets.
Today in the grain market, we had a little bit of a mixed bag. Soybeans were on the rise, showing some stabilization in the face of big challenges. The futures opened unchanged, then rallied, leading the way really for the grains. But it's important to point out that so much is riding on China and when and if they're going to honor the phase 1 trade deal. Now, corn, on the other hand, was lower. It's a 6-day downward spiral to absolute new lows that has been really such a surprise for a lot of traders. We're hitting numbers that we haven't seen for the past year. Right now, it's important also to see that Brazil really has a little bit of an edge over the U.S. because the U.S. dollar index is so high. The live cattle was limit down, but the wild swings are just gripping the futures right now. I think that the market really was testing the low from Monday, but it started the day out with rallying almost limit up to begin with. The economic downturn is just having a disastrous effect on all of livestock.
Sam Hudson with Corn Belt Marketing, our guest in studio today. And Sam, as we often do this time of year, let's talk about South America because they continue to be a major competitor for us on the global export market.
Yeah, you continue to see not only growth in demand there, but yields as well. And I think that's something concerning moving into this year. The optimistic points I could have on that are, it looks like second crop corn acres could drag a little bit if we stay wet in the northern regions of Brazil specifically. Okay. I think the Argentina crop could get cut a little bit as well. They've stayed dry for an extended period of time, but all in all, on the whole, you're going to have big crops there. Who becomes the main supplier becomes the big issue. Yeah. And we've continued to see China invest in their infrastructure, railways. We've got BR-163 that's been paved that was started decades ago and is just the beginning. I mean, I think you're going to have more thoroughfares, more veins off of that route and continue to grow ag down in that region. And I think it's not going to stop. I do think the trade war accelerated that. Okay. But, I think a lot of that was coming anyways. So at this point, without knowing really politically which way China wants to go, we can revert to currencies. We've seen a pretty hefty drop in the U.S. dollar with this coronavirus situation going on, but the Brazilian real has also continued to make new lows, which keeps them more and more competitive. So if you consider all that, our U.S. corn prices are still really cheap at the Gulf, but we're going to be competing on these beans for quite some time. And the fact that we haven't gotten more Chinese demand before their harvest is a little disappointing. Yeah. And Sam, as we look at some of the investment that's been made down there in South America, because of the trade war, there has been a lot of investment, and they will continue to be a major competitor for us. Yeah, and we've seen technology move down there, we've seen equipment move down there, just the farming practices in general. And, there's linear trends there in South America, just like we've seen in China. I mean, China, I believe, has doubled their corn yield in the last 15 years or something like that. And we've seen significant yield increases also in South America. So all this technology, has continued to hit the market. They're kind of seeing the boom now that it seemed like the U.S. had seen over the last, 2 decades. Yeah. So how does the U.S. stay competitive then? It's going to be efficiency, and unfortunately, we know what sometimes that means, and that can lead to consolidation. We've got, high levels of farm debt still. I think that's one of these silent beasts within the ag community right now. But in general, I mean, we still produce a very good crop as well. I think a lot of these worldwide trade agreements can help as well too. But the politics right now amidst us, there's a lot of conflict there, a lot of headbutting, and a lot involved. And once we get past this election, I think that could help things just a little bit, loosen those a little bit, because you're either going to have Trump that gets confirmed for another term, or you're going to have a complete change altogether that's just going to kind of reshuffle the deck. Okay, well, it'll be something to watch. Appreciate it as always. Thanks, Sam. We'll be back with more AgDay coming up in just a minute.
For marketing advice, call Sam Hudson with Corn Belt Marketing at 800-655-3380. Weathering the Storm, a special report focusing on Mother Nature's potential impact on the 2020 growing season, is coming to AgDay, U.S. Farm Report, and AgriTalk later this month. Brought to you by Pivot BioProven, the nitrogen-producing microbes that stay put, weather or not.
Meteorologist Cindy Clausen joining us with a look at our national forecast. And Cindy, I'm just going to call this storm a little messy. It looks like a mess.
It's definitely messy. You not only have a couple of things going on here at the same place, well, multiple things going on, which makes it extra messy. Let's take a look. We have several things going on. This is our main system with the low pressure system here. That's going to be pushing off to the northeast. We have a second system, and a lot of the moisture that we're going to see in the next 24 to 36 hours is going to be confined in between these two. We also have a low over towards the mid-Atlantic states, so look for some heavier precipitation to start the day. Mostly rain, but we do have some snow on the northern end of that as well. Heading through the day, you can see the focus of the heavier moisture, rain, and then snow on the northern end of that is going to be here in kind of the north central United States. Cold front trailing back into Texas. We're going to pick up some moisture with that as we head through time, and that's going to be spreading some more showers and thunderstorms through parts of the Ohio, Tennessee valleys, and all the way back into Texas, while the northern end of that is snow and could be heavy in spots. Now, behind this whole system, the high pressure starts to settle in, and we'll see some clearing as we head into the weekend. But for Friday, as we head through the day, everything pushes on off to the east. Most of the snow moves into Canada, and then we still need to watch out for showers and thunderstorms all along that front as it moves into the southeastern United States. Now, as far as precipitation, the past 24 hours, we've had a fair amount, especially here in parts of the eastern Corn Belt, the Ohio Valley, and heading over towards the mid-Atlantic states. More rain in parts of the southern plains, and of course it's been pretty wet over the Four Corners region as well, but the next 24 hours is going to be very wet for a lot of the central and eastern part of the country, especially along those frontal boundaries. Now, this is our in-house model as far as snow, and you can see what it's saying for the next 24 hours. Similar placement there, with Nebraska getting a fairly decent hit there, eastern or central Colorado, all the way up through Minnesota and into the southeastern part of Canada as well. So be prepared for that snow if you are living especially in the central and northern plains and upper Midwest. Temperature-wise, yeah, we have a shot of colder air that is glancing blow across our northern tier states. We're still looking at 70s and 80s across the south. Some slightly cooler temperatures in a bit of the northwest as well. We're going to see those overnight lows getting down into the single digits in part of the northern plains, but still really mild, really moist in the southeastern United States. And then as we head into tomorrow, we're going to watch those temperatures even cooler as that cold air moves a little further to the east behind that frontal boundary. That's a look at your national forecast. Now let's check out the weather where you live. Spring Texas, showers and thunderstorms, especially later tonight with a high of 82 degrees. Vernal, Utah, rain and snow showers with a high of 47 degrees. And in Equinox Mountain, Vermont, wintry mix likely today with a high of 38.
Coming up, the fight against the coronavirus taking on many unique twists. How some distilleries are doing their part next. The coronavirus impacting all aspects of our lives, and now we want to hear from you. Going to farms and feedlots to care for cattle is the norm for many bovine vets, but with the coronavirus outbreak, are you still making on-site client visits? Let us know in the latest survey that's being taken by our partners over at Bovine Veterinarian. For more, head over to drovers.com. With the coronavirus threat worsening, several distilleries in the U.S. have switched from producing alcohol to producing hand sanitizer to meet increased demand. That includes distilleries in North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Maryland, to name a few. They're now producing homemade sanitizers using alcohol, ethanol, water, and in some cases ingredients like aloe vera and lemongrass oil. A lot of the businesses are even offering the solutions to locals for free. Coming up, a little morning inspiration from a farmer who's putting the fight against the coronavirus in perspective. Next. These tough times, with so much information coming out regarding this deadly virus, it's understandable that many people are feeling stress and anxiety. But one producer in Las Cruces, New Mexico, is taking a positive attitude. Listen to just a portion of what he recently posted on Facebook.
This is what I understand. That America's farmers and ranchers are going to get up every single morning and we're going to do what we do best. We're going to continue to provide the maximum amount of nutrition at the most effective price that we can. The fact that we can get up and we can restock those shelves so that when you have to go back to the grocery store at some point, that you understand that the American farmer and rancher put those items back on there.
That's Jay Hill, who owns a farm in New Mexico. Jay is going on to say that as doctors, nurses, and first responders fight to stop this horrible virus, it's the farmer's job to make sure they have the nutrition and energy to get that done. Jay saying the world needs farmers and ranchers now more than ever. Jay, we couldn't agree with you more. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.